After the preparation, we are now ready to make our UV layout. For this, I start with the paper here on the outside. So make this visible by holding down the R key and drag here over the null object to set the display flag here. You see that I want to have a logo here somewhere on the outside, and the rest here is not so important for me because I only want to show papers, so it's not so crucial at this point, but we want to unwrap everything. So Houdini has a whole bunch of cool UV tools, and if you want to know more about these UV tools, you can take a look into my Houdini Fundamentals training on Vimeo. I add a link below in the description. To now check which side is which, I template here with the hold down E key and dragging here over this null object the lid. So we see here is the drinking area, and I want to have the cut exactly on the opposite side. So I place it here, and then I toggle this flag here again by holding E, drag over this here or deactivate it here, only to get rid here of this distracting wireframe. Then we can now start setting here cuts, and for this we use the really powerful UV Flatten node inside of Houdini. I add it here to the stream, activate it and select it. And if you now come here to the handle tool, you see some things change. First thing you see here, we have this grid here, and you can change it by scrolling with your mouse wheel. So you can make it bigger or smaller. If you don't see it, right mouse button, click here. There's a visualize texture, and here you can select what kind of UV grid you want to see. Sometimes it's important that you also see the orientation. So for this, you can activate display orientation glyphs here. Now you see these glyphs here, and you can see if they are mirrored or not, but I think they are a little bit distracting. And if you want to get rid of that for the first steps, go here to off. And so now we can better see what's going on. Then what I tend to do all the time is I split now my viewport here into two side by side, and I hover with my mouse over this first viewport, spacebar 1 for the perspective, and here spacebar 5 for the UV layout. And now I'm not sure if really we are still on the same side. So let's template this again. Select here the right angle. Yeah, that's it. And to make sure now that we don't lose it, I select here my cut seam tool, and I click here one cut into this so that we later are sure that's the right thing. So okay, now we can get rid of the template here. So the whole functionality now here is really cool. You have tools here, and you don't have to hold down the shift key if you want to add cuts. So this is a tool, this is a scissor, which means it's cut seam. And every time you click here, you make a cut into your UV layout. You see that here something happens live. I deactivate enable manual layout. You can do the same thing here. So Houdini is able to layout it for you. And then you see that every cut I make, it changes here the islands. And so you have a better control about what's happening. And what you do now is you cut the whole thing. So I go here through, I click here. If you want to make a longer cut, you can use the A keyboard shortcut, which you know from the selection. So if you have selected something, hold down the A key, you see you get this pathfinder here, and you can click, for example, here, and you get the cut until this point. What's a little bit different from selecting is selecting whole loop cuts. But if you read here the status line inside of my viewport, you see that Shift Command A selects the whole loop if you click with the middle mouse button. So it's a little bit different. If you want to get rid of a cut which you made by accident, you can't hold down the control key. You see you get a minus here, but it doesn't work at all here, because you are still here in this cut seam tool. So you have to switch here to the seam tool, or you can make a right mouse button click. Here are all the tools which you find here, and you say, I want to sew back here. And if you click now here, you see it's the same opposite. You sew it together, and yeah, that's the whole magic behind that. What I like about the tool is that you see it here live, and like I've said, I disabled here enable manual layouts so that Houdini is able to build this now. Let's cut here. And then we go here to the top, and now you see I have to cut here this line and then here, and we can try the A key again to cut here, and then I hold down the A key to cut until this point, and now we come to the point where this bottom part here is a little bit distracting because it's the same stream. How to get rid of that for a moment. There's a really cool node inside of Houdini which you can use, and the node is named visibility. If you add visibility here and I place it before the UV Flatten, I can select it here and make a display. You see that everything is now gone. The thing is that you have here a group field which you can use now, and what I enter now here is the group of our paper bottom, which we made in the last lesson. So now you see why these groups are important. And if you add this now here, you see that this bottom part is now gone. What you also can do, really often you need exactly the opposite, is here you have here an action, and you can apply to, and you can apply to non-selected. So then you only see that. And what you then do, let's go back to selected primitive to get rid of the bottom. You can now go back to the Flatten node and work here. What some trainees now are afraid is that they say, okay, if you have a visibility node and deactivate the bottom, it's gone, and now I make selections. Do the selections still hold if I deactivate the visibility node here and come back or switch them? Yes. The mesh is still intact, it's not changed. You still have all the numbers correct, which are here in the seams. Every click which we've done here is a number of an edge, and so it's stored here. And so you can do it step by step without any problems. So that's the cool functionality of this node here. So the bottom is now gone. Nice. And now we have to check where I left. Too much talking. Yeah. I'm still here in the cut tool. I cut here now until I come to this point, and now we have to cut this here. And I think I had made too much divisions here, but yeah, I hold down the A key to go around that here. Go to the top. Now we have to check if we really found everything. I hold down A again. This is a really good helper. Sometime if you hold down A, click here to get this. And now you maybe see that we have here overlappings. What helps really often is clicking here. You see then the layout changes a little bit, and you can check if everything is now right. So now we have opened this thing here, and here I have a cut which I don't want. I sew it back. Zip. Everything is back now here. Then I want to have the inside and the outside in different islands. So let's go in here and say I take this here, this loop, click here. Yeah, wrong tool. Back to my scissor. Yeah. Now we go here. That's the part where you now add loud music. Yeah, and then we can run here around really fast. And I hold down the A key. You also can make a loop if you see that Houdini finds it, and I think that's good. Now we have it. Another interesting thing here which you can do is you have here this drop down, and if you go over the drop down, you see which UV you are working with. In the auto mode, it selects the UV. Otherwise, you can select here the different UVs. Here's a background, and we have the checkerboard here in the background, and really important, here is display. Here we can tell now the system, show me overlaps. So if you have overlaps of islands, you can see them by clicking here. And what you also can do is distortions. This is a really good checking here for that. Now we go here to the inside. I also want to open this up. Okay. That's it. Now we have our two islands here, and maybe we are happy with that. And now comes the opposite part. I go here to the visibility and say this time we want to have the non-selected here. Now you see we get this guy. We go back now to the UV Flatten. Don't get rid of these cuts here, they are still important, but we want to work with this island here. Now you have to decide what you want to cut and how you want to cut it, and I think it would be good here to open this. So I click here, then I hold down Shift Control A and make a middle mouse button click here on this edge. And so you make a cut around. This is loop cut, and you see here this little island here is now splitted here. Then we go to this side where we had the other cuts, and I click here, here, and here to open this to get this strip here. Now we can go back to the visibility, press the B key like bypass, and now you see that was the unwrap. Nothing is overlapped at the moment, and the distortion, I think it's okay for now. That's it for this part. Now let's go to the other side. This is the lid, and press Command H to see what's going on. I also deactivate here my handle tool to see what I'm doing here. And what I want here is the only thing that I later want to place a text here. So this here is not so important for me. So let's do the same thing here. Make a little bit space here. What we can do is we can try different kind of UV tools. For example, we have a UV project here, which you maybe know if you come from other 3D applications like Maya, for example. If you go to a UV project, you can select here projection, orthographic, polar, cylindrical, and so on. And you can initialize here, and you see you then get, if you have the handle tool here, this plane, and you see you project now from the top. It works fine, but then you first have to split everything in groups and make it step by step with UV project, for example. Then there's UV Unwrap, which is also a really powerful node. And here you can select the planes. So it's equal to tools which you have in Maya, and you project here from different planes here onto the mesh. But now you see here, because we have the distortion and the overlaps on, there's still work to do. So you can do it step by step with the help of the groups. So you sequentially have more than one of these UV nodes after each other to make your unwrapping process here. What we want to do is we use our friend UV Flatten again. This time I want to show you a way of preparing something which is important for you. And what's important for me in this case here is this area here. So I'm really after this area here. If you take now a look into my groups, you remember that we have here the lit flat areas, which we built in the last lesson. And what I want is, I only want this top area here, and this is the most important one for me. And I use this chance to show you how to work with more than one group at the same time. So let's take another group node, add it here, and I use as a base group this lit flat areas. So this group here generates, number 4, its selection from this group. You see, it's the same selection now. But now you can combine this, for example, with the bounding region if you like. And if you now activate here your handle tool, you can make this bounding box a little bit bigger and bring it up until you reach the point here. And everything which is now inside of this bounding box and is inside of this group here is now selected. The positioning here would be later if you really want to work full procedural with an expression again. We talked about this in the last lessons where I asked other nodes which is the height, which for example is here, or the bounding box top here, and then you can take this here as the center from the bounding box of this lid here. So that's the whole idea behind that. So let's do that. bbox 0, which is the string, and then we need the d underscore y max as a position, and it isn't happy at the moment because max has to be written in capital letters. And now you see it places itself from the height here, and so it always is at the center right here, and then you can make this smaller, so don't select anything here. But We use only the flat areas here, so nothing here. This is select the important island. That's it to this point. And now we can first make a UV for that. So let's take a UV project, add it here. Say I want only to project the group number 4, which is not the best name. So name it lid top UV island, so that you'll later understand what's going on. And then we go here and say, try this one here. Yeah, and then we initialize the whole thing, and now you see you get this here as a result. Now let's deactivate here, that here, so the distortions, and you see the rest is okay. Now we have our first UV here, and then for the rest we can take a UV Flatten node, add it here, and now important that we unwrap the rest here. So how to do that? For that I deactivate first the color, it's a little bit distracting. Go back here to our tools and deactivate the manual layout. And you see now Houdini tries to unwrap everything because, yeah, we haven't told that we have made a part of that. What you can do is you can now tell the system that it preserves seams which are there. And now you see that the seams which we built in this UV project node for the top here, let's name this top UV project, are preserved, and now you can work with the rest here. So that's the whole idea. Let's run through that and say we want to cut a little bit here. For example, I want to open now this area here. Okay, something we don't need. Let's get rid of that. Okay, this is now open. Then we go back to the scissor, hold down the A key, go to this point here. Then we want to open this area here. And if you find it helpful, make a right mouse button click, and you can activate the checkers here. And with the scroll wheel on your mouse, you can change the size so that you see it live what happens with the stretching. So if you now go here, hold down the A key, you see you get rid here of the stretchings. Okay, let's take a look. A little bit distracting here. I hope I found everything. Here is something which I don't like. You see this here looks ugly, and this is the inner part here. Okay, so we also open this here. I hold down the A key again. Open this here. And if you have the need, you also can cut here edges. Sometimes it's easier to do it here. Yeah, I think I'm through that. And yeah, if you want to know more about these tools, like I've said, you can use my publication, Houdini Fundamentals. And what we now do is we have to bring these two things together. And the cool thing is UVs are nothing else than a vertex attribute. You see on the vertices are now the positions. If we now bring everything together here after merge, you will see, oh, we have a little bit of overlapping, but the islands are still there. So we only need to lay out the whole thing. And for layouting, we can use UV layout. Let's activate that. UV layout is a really powerful node. I've talked about this node in the publication a lot, and you see the islands are now here placed somehow in this area. If you want, you can now play with all these things and scale everything, matching here to the size of this cup and so on. and try to rotate stuff in 90-degree angles and the padding and all kinds of way. You can stack islands and so on. If you want to work in a UDIM workflow, which is really popular now because not only 3D code, but now also Substance Painter can do it, and Mari for sure, it's the classic UDIM painting application. You can also work with UDIMs here. So that's the last thing I want to demonstrate here. What I do is I don't use the UV layout here. I go here and use a UV layout first here for the lid. Okay, I activate this. And you now see that the whole UV is placed in the UV standard space between 0 and 1 here. What we now can do is you first decide, again, all these things, if you allow rotations and all this crazy stuff. If you want to allow that here in a shell, another shell is placed. Yeah, all this stuff you can do. But the most important thing is where to place it now. And what I want is, I want to place this here in the next UDIM, so in this tile here. So go to the targets, open this up, say I want to have it as UDIM tiles, and activate this, the default, and it's still there because the first UDIM tile is 1001 and we want to have it 1002. And now you see it's moved to the side now. Then we use for this here a UV layout again. This is the other part of the cup, this one here. So make your decisions how you want to place everything. Then we go into the UDIM tiles and say I want to place you in 1001, so in the first tile. And if you now take a look here after the merge, you now see that you have 2 tiles here. And that's the whole thing. So that closes now the UVs here for the cup. I hope you learned something in that. And in the next lesson, we want to bring it into our painting application. Have fun with that.